The Good Shepherd, fourth in the Angel of Death series, now available at StevieJoAuthor.com. Hi, welcome to another episode of The Composition of Imagination. I am your host and author, Stevie Jo, and these are my book guardians, Tasha and Jason. And this is the show where, if you've never watched it before, we do a deep dive into my writing process, the works I've created. Heavy emphasis on Angel of Death, which is my debut series. 4 books are out right now: In the Beginning, False Idols, Veiled Commandments, and The Good Shepherd, all available on my website. Check the link in the description. You can go there and order them from there. So today we are going to do a dive into, or we're going to fly into heaven. So my interpretation of the kingdom of heaven, basically. We have the first book, In the Beginning, opens up with it and just kicks you right in right off the bat. So,
yeah, there's no kid gloves to it. It's like, here you go, this is what you're doing.
Yep, and you're basically introduced to it like in the middle of things happening. So you kind of, as you're reading, you're getting some backstory and moving forward to keep things going. So I figured today would be a good day to break things down just a little bit and talk more about what is important in the kingdom of heaven, as well as just give you a little overview of some of the characters, the key characters. You know, we're not going to talk about every single angel, but the first thing that we need to know about heaven, and you will probably hear us address this a few times, time works differently. If you did not watch last week's video about like setting and like how time works in Angel of Death, go back and watch that just to acquaint yourself with that kind of stuff. But basically, the long and short of it is, for every 3 days on earth is 1 day in heaven. So that way you kind of know why things maybe move a little slower and why it seems like the angels never sleep, because they've got a long day to go through. And so it doesn't seem like a lot happens in heaven whenever you're reading through it, but man, the stuff that does happen is super important. So that's why we wanted to take this dive into the kingdom and just take you on a tour, so to speak. So the first thing you see when you enter heaven and when you read the book is the pearl gates. Mm-hmm. So that I kept because I thought it was important. Not that, you know, heaven is a gated community or anything, which is a funny joke and based on that one video we did. So if you have not watched our video talking about the book 1 trailer, you are definitely missing out, and you should watch that after you watch this, because we have a really good discussion about gated communities. It's a very fun and entertaining discussion, to say the least. But the pearl gates I kept because I felt like it's a staple, for one. It's a very defining feature of heaven. It's like nobody really goes into a lot of detail about what it looks like beyond that, because it's more of just, you wish it and it's there. Yeah. You know, of course, I'm probably only thinking of This Is the End, which I love, by the way, because they wish for the Backstreet Boys and there they are. I wish that could happen in real life sometimes. Yeah. But anyway, but no, I felt like if I didn't have the pearl gates, how would you really know you're in heaven? Yeah. So that was a staple that I felt like I had to include. The thing I did differently, though, is you can't just show up as a blessed soul and walk in, and then there you are. You have to be approved by the defenders at the gate, which sounds really bizarre, and it sounds like, wow, now I have to basically pass a test or something. No, yes, you do.
It's sort of like the old, you got to meet with St. Peter. If you're in the book, here you go. So it's kind of the same thing.
It's like a modern take on that. Yeah. It's the main thing you need to know about getting access into heaven is when a soul dies on earth, and they will all naturally be taken to heaven for judgment, so to speak, but you're not really being judged. What happens is death, whom I personify as this just overarching presence in the book, will mark you on the back of your neck with either the blessed symbol or the damned symbol. And when you get to the pearl gates, it's the defender's job to recognize which one you have, and then they send you where you need to go. So it kind of sucks for the damned, because if you think about it, they get to glimpse heaven for a second, and then it's ripped away. But
hell's not supposed to be a fun place.
And that's part of their torture, too.
Yeah.
So,
I guess for the demons, but, for the souls, no.
Yeah, for the damned that go down there, no, it's not supposed to be. But, so, if you're given access to heaven, you enter through the pearl gates, and there's defenders there that have, a big sword at their side, and they're wearing golden and mother of pearl armor, because it mirrors the gates. I describe the gates as being solid gold with mother of pearl in the slats between the bars, so it's very, very regal and royal feeling. When you get to go into heaven, it's ooh, I'm in this fancy kingdom. And so we're going to talking about this, we'll just kind of take Hope's journey. You remember when the book opens, she's flying through. Yeah. So we'll just follow her path and go straight to Nirvana, which was not named after the band, even though I do enjoy them. But I chose the names of the cities specifically because they resonate holiness or that kind of higher lifted emotion. Yeah. Nirvana, you think, oh, it's such a glorious, glamorous place. And
inner peace.
Yes, exactly. And so Nirvana is coined as the learned city because that's where angels go to learn how to be angels and do angel stuff. So you basically would go into the Holy Library. The Holy Library is key, guys. It hasn't played a super big role yet, but it is a very important
There's a lot of information in there.
And they have a place that I actually researched this. There's a lot of different words for a holy room. Mm-hmm. And the one that I liked was I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, the sacrarium. And it's basically a word for a holy room with holy stuff in it.
I think, yeah.
And so inside the Holy Library is the sacrarium, where they keep these ancient texts that are from the dawn of time. And it has information in it about ancient magic that angels can learn to use. But really, most of the magic is dark by heaven's standards.
Yeah.
So the only one who really knows how to use it no longer lives in heaven, which is why it's kept under lock and key in the sacrarium. And you can only enter the sacrarium if you are a higher power, which includes the wielder of fate, the Pied Piper. Those are higher powers.
Yeah.
So they would be able to enter there. And we'll talk in a minute about the Wielder of Fate and the Pied Piper and all that. We're just kind of journeying through the cities right now. So that's the main thing that's in Nirvana. It's any angel, even if you've been there for 800 years like Hope, any angel that needs information goes there. And if they want to learn new magic, they go there. They're oh, I want to be able to do this. Well, there you go. In our last video, I talked about how magic is fluid in Angel of Death. So that's why having a library where you can learn new magic is important, because use it or lose it, man. Just like the stuff you learn in school. Once you leave Nirvana, you go into Utopia. And this is where the shepherds live. So we'll kind of stop to talk about them for a minute. They are basically when you as a mortal feel oh, my guardian angel was looking after me to help that's a shepherd in the world of Angel of Death. Because realistically, there are too many mortals on Earth for just a few guardians to look over. So the shepherds take over the brunt of the work, and they are highly, highly skilled angels that can look over hundreds of mortals at a time. One angel can.
Yeah.
So it's very, like, they're very skilled in being able to help guide us to salvation as mortals. They live in these, like, I picture them as, like, high-rise apartments, basically. You know, like, you've got, or, you know, those, like, community-style apartments where you've got bedrooms, but then a community area of a living room with a kitchen and stuff. That's, like, how I envision them in there, and I kind of describe it that way.
They're living in a dorm.
I mean, basically, but, you know, for those who've never lived in a dorm, we think of it as just community style apartment.
I mean,
housing.
it is,
but it is.
That's dormitory.
It is. That's just the name colleges slap on it, you know. But so it's basically that, where they're all, and they work together. They like living together because it helps. If they're having trouble with something with a mortal, they can feed off of someone else. They're very social. But I also describe Utopia as being very quiet. Because they're always watching us. So they don't do a lot of communicating.
Yeah.
But when they do, it's because of something important.
Yeah.
So, leave Utopia, and you can go one of two ways, because it's almost like a fork in the road. You can either go over to Ecstasy, which is the largest city in heaven, or you can go down to Grace. And so we will go ahead and go up to Ecstasy, I think, and just kind of explore that area. So Ecstasy is almost like the crown jewel of heaven, hence its name, right? In it is the bright golden castle of the Angels of Wisdom. And the Angels of Wisdom are tied to the holy trees. So, you know how in the Bible it said that Eve ate from the apple of the tree of knowledge and all that? Mm-hmm. Well, it's not. It's believed, when I did some research, it is believed that it wasn't really an apple, that it was a different kind of fruit that's more representative of knowledge, so to speak. Yeah. So I kind of took that and ran with it. And I said, well, what if there were 3 trees instead of just 2? And what if not controlled, that's a bad way to put it. What if they held the key to different important aspects of life?
Yeah.
So I have life, knowledge, and death. And fun fact, death came much later than life and knowledge, because the angels didn't know death for a long time. And that was why the fall of Lucian happened, because death was introduced. So you'll learn more about that, kids, whenever I release the novella series called The Balance of Power. But that's the crux of it. So there are 3 Angels of Wisdom. There's Carmen. She is the keeper of knowledge. And notice how they're keepers and not like angels of, or like they don't own it. They're protecting it. And they're guarding it from people or angels or whatever who may wish to use it with ill intent. So Carmen is the keeper of knowledge. Theo is the keeper of life. And Patrice is the keeper of death. And the funny thing about the Angels of Wisdom is they, unlike other angels in heaven, cannot retire, so to speak. Their life force is bound to that tree. So if the tree gets sick, they get sick. If the tree dies, they die. See where I'm going with this? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They are tied to that tree. So there has literally never been another keeper of knowledge except Carmen. She has been the only one from the dawn of time. There has never been another keeper of life. It has always only been Theo. And Patrice came into existence specifically for death. It was basically a manifestation of that. So, that's...
that fate wanted.
Yes, because it is all ultimately controlled by fate. So, that's where they are. And they have this huge elaborate castle that, you know, there's 3 wings to it. And they've got like a meeting hall where they talk about what's going on. Kind of a little political, but Carmen is she likes her order, and she likes to make sure that things are going
being in control.
She loves being in control.
You put a nice little sheen on it. Let's cut the crap.
Well, because she walks around in her flowing ball gowns with her glittery blonde hair, and you know, she at the end of the day,
she's a control freak.
She is, and it bothers the piss out of her when she doesn't know what she feels she should know.
Yeah.
Because she takes being the keeper of knowledge as, I know everything.
I know all, I am all.
Exactly. And she kind of looks at herself as the leader of the 3 of them. And Theo's just kind of like, whatever you want to do, sweetheart. That's
all you. I'm going to be over here.
He's the keeper of life. And with the introduction, and this doesn't spoil anything, it just kind of gives you more information about Theo and stuff. With the introduction of death, naturally, life learned that it is precious and not to be taken for granted. So Theo kind of has that approach of, well, we got to do what we got to do because nothing is forever except us, I guess. You know, that whole thing.
Yeah, he does kind of strike me. He reminds me of some characters I've seen in movies where it's just like, whatever, dear. Just don't burn the whole city to the ground. I'll be right here working on my golf game.
I mean, he has learned to take more of a kind of outside perspective to try to see things from another way, whereas Carmen is like, I know the way, and it's the way I am saying, even if it's not.
Right.
So,
and also Theo sits there and is kind of seeing the big picture, or the bigger picture than Carmen ever could, and he's like, in his own way, slowly is like, hey, you may be freaking out, but if everything I'm kind of seeing is falling into place, you really need to sit down.
Yeah, it's one of those but then you have Patrice. And she, as the keeper of death, is so used to being bullied and hated.
She comes across, though, as, like, obviously, she's the youngest of the angels.
Yes.
So she comes across almost like a 14-year-old given a CEO position.
Yeah.
At a major company, and everybody's like, we're not listening to you. You are going to listen to me. I have as much power as you.
Yeah.
And you're not going to sit there and ignore me. I don't care how much you think you can bully me and everything else. Remember, death.
Yeah. And the problem they have is that they don't understand death, because it was not a thing when Carmen and Theo were first created.
You old geezers need to go off to pasture. I'll take care of it.
Yeah. So Patrice's struggle is that she's trying to get them to, 1, include her on stuff. And then 2, she's trying to get them to understand that death is just as important as life and knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, and even
it's
having...
part of the cycle.
Yeah, but they don't think that. They don't want that. When mortal souls die, Carmen wants them to come to heaven and choose to be reborn as an angel, because she wants more angels, because that is the life she knows. So that's what she does. So now that we're talking about the choice of what to do whenever mortal souls die, the trees that each of the angels of wisdom are tied to bears a different fruit. And when a mortal soul dies, they can choose what tree they would like to do. Now, I know this earlier in this video. We talked about how, you have a mark. Death puts a mark on you. That is just for the quality of who you are and what your mortal life amounted to. Once you reach the pearl gates and you're granted admission, you go to the Garden of Eden, and they can choose life, knowledge, or death. And if they choose death, that just means that their soul retires and is at peace for all eternity. If they choose life, they get to go back to Earth in a sort of reincarnation kind of vibe. And if they choose knowledge, they get to be an angel. So, it's a win-win-win, I think, for all three.
Yeah.
But some angels of wisdom take it more personally than others. So, And then, of course, the Garden of Eden is a very protected place that no one is allowed to enter without permission from Patrice, because Patrice is the keeper of death. And at the end of the Garden of Eden is the eternal pool where the souls retire. So
that sounds so nice.
Doesn't it? Just like a relaxing eternal spa day.
Yes.
Just
yeah.
The
way it broke it down.
Yeah.
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 I was like, that would be nice if it actually really broke down like that.
Right? And so then kind of in front of the Garden of Eden, kind of, think of it like a neighbor's yard almost, is Genesis's castle. That's all we're going to say about that. And then in front of Genesis's castle, and the reason we're only going to say that much about that is because that's yet to come as far as the books
that's
go.
down the line.
That's down the line.
That's way down the line.
But the important thing is, in front of her castle is a courtyard where two key things reside, for lack of a better term. The balance of power statue and the prayer well. Those are two key features in her garden. The balance of power statue is meant to show both heaven and hell when things are getting too crazy and someone needs to put it even again, or else some shit's gonna happen and it's not gonna be good.
It's almost like a clock in a way, because if it shifts too much, it's gonna, instead of being, it's a little bit off, if something isn't done within, let's say, a 20-minute time span, which 20 minutes up in heaven is nothing.
Yeah.
But on Earth, that 20 minutes could be the difference from we see sunshine to the next minute the whole freaking planet's burned to a crisp. Mm-hmm. And once it starts going, it may not stop.
And you basically have to work harder to get it back.
Yeah.
So the statue is basically a stone angel
meter
holding an apple in her hand. She's not supposed to hold it. She's reaching for it. If she's holding it, that means something has happened. So that means something has happened, and be better. But it's she's reaching for an apple, and there's a serpent wrapped around her who is also reaching for the apple, but he only comes to about like her waist or so. So she's got to, keep the serpent away, and there's a good buffer there. But if the apple ever gets into the serpent's mouth, because her hand, if the balance is tipped, her hand will just keep falling and falling and falling with the apple in it. And the serpent's like right here. And if it gets to where the serpent can bite the apple, that means it's too late. And one of the realms has ultimate control and the other two are pretty much fucked. So.
Nice.
Yeah. So let's hope that never happens, right?
Maybe.
So those are the key elements in ecstasy. That's kind of our little journey through that, just overview.
Amazing how big that is to have that much going on.
Mm-hmm. It's a very, that's why I said it's the most like prestigious city. It's the largest. It's kind of their like pillar of success city, so to speak. And then the second most important city in heaven is grace. So, you hear the terms like fall from grace and, amazing grace and like all those kinds of things. So I kind of turned that into a city. And they basically, the only thing that city houses is 6 guardians, the wielder of fate, and the Pied Piper. So that is all that's there. And the reason that's all that's there is because those 6 guardians they are the strongest among the strongest of the angels in heaven. And their job is to help with mortals when things get real bad. And they can only focus on one mortal at a time. or one event at a time.
I was going to say, it sounds more like a event.
Yeah, it's very one-track monomaniacal. Like, I can only look at this. But the Guardians have, like, an orb in their castles where they can ask it to show them whatever they want to see in any of the 3 realms almost. And they'll be able to see it. So they could, theoretically, a Guardian could be like, show me Evie, the Dark Angel, and where she is. And it could show the Guardian where she is. But if they're like, show me where Lucian is, it's like 404 server not found. Like it does not do that. The only angel that we know of that has access to Lucian's whereabouts is the Wielder of Fate. And that is to keep him in check, because the Wielder of Fate is supposed to be a neutral force. Supposed to be. So Hope, get it together.
No. No.
She is cosplaying as Hope at our cons, and that is one of her favorite characters. Yeah. So that's why I looked at her and said that. So all the angels, the interesting thing, since we're shifting to the Wielder of Fate, all the angels in heaven, as you would expect, have white wings. No halos. I think that's tacky. But they all have white wings. The Wielder of Fate and the Pied Piper, as neutral forces, have gray wings. That way it shows, even though they live in heaven, that's because heaven was created first. So that's just where it is. But it's supposed to represent their constant hold of the balance. You know, they are part of what helps keep that statue in its place. Mm-hmm. And the Pied Piper is basically, one, he's the defender of fate. And at all costs, he will protect fate. Not necessarily the wielder, but fate.
Yeah.
And he is also the bringer of consequences, be they good or bad. So whatever fate has you do, or kind of whatever you think you're in control of doing in your life, but that fate has laid out for you, he will collect on whatever, because like we said, you can't do something for nothing.
Yeah.
So he will collect, whether it's good or bad. It may be, oh, you won the lottery, here's $10 million. Okay, but you have to pay like $8 million in taxes or something. It's a silly example, but that's kind of the way that he works, where it's like, it's not necessarily, oh, you went and got drunk last night, so you're gonna, hit a person and kill them to learn a lesson. That's not always what it is. Yeah. It can be simple things to help with rewarding, because consequences don't always have to be bad.
Right.
So that's kind of what he does. And the Wielder of Fate is the one that it helps guide things in a lesser of two evils direction. So Hope is supposed to be doing that. She's having a little trouble. So we're working on that as the books progress. She's not exactly the most humble angel.
No.
She does...
She is infuriating.
Meanwhile, she's Tasha's favorite character. But she has been in heaven for 800 years. And she thinks that this is what is due to her.
Yeah.
Because she's been
up there 800 years. Well, here, let me bring out the decorations and a birthday cake. 800 years.
Thank you. Thank you.
What she wants more than anything is the gem ceremony.
Yes.
If you could go ahead and arrange that, that would be great.
Well, you got to be able to be...
Why am I always a character that somebody else, like, infuriating hates?
I know! Yeah.
You could be better. It's just your character is a pretty little princess that doesn't understand that if she doesn't figure out what she's doing and become the proper wielder of fate, everything's gonna go asunder. She ain't gonna worry about no gem ceremony. She ain't gonna worry about a new castle. It's gonna be just...
It will be fine. We will figure it out.
See, she'll figure it out. It's fine.
Figure it out.
It's fine. So maybe she did. Maybe she did a little thing on a tree and
It's fine.
but it's fine. She's gonna figure it out.
Yeah,
It'll work out.
She's gonna figure it
It
out.
works out. It all works out. It all washes out in the wash.
Exactly.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
Fine.
And you know what? Samuel's there to help
Yeah.
guide her. So Samuel is the Pied Piper. And
I have a buddy.
he
It
is he's very frustrated. Jason is cosplaying as Samuel at our cons, and Samuel, much like Jason, is very frustrated with Hope's
Shocker.
inability to be more humble and to do what he expects a wielder fate to do, because Samuel is, so there's a funny joke in the very first chapter, I believe it is, that I love. That I put in there, where Samuel comes to Hope and is like, you need to buckle down and really do this. And she's like, I'm getting there. It's going to happen when it happens. Like, just let me do what I do. And he's like, Hope, there have been, 4 or 5 wielders before you.
Yeah.
You need to do the things they did. And she's like, listen, there's a reason why there's been so many wielders before me and only one Pied Piper before you, because nobody wants your job. She flat out is just like, nobody wants to be you, Samuel. So...
Yeah, hey, great responsibility.
Yeah. And so that is another thing. There have been numerous predecessors to Hope. And it's not because they failed at their jobs that they're no longer the wielder of fate. It's just that they fulfilled their divine purpose. So all angels in heaven and hell have a divine purpose that was gifted to them by fate. And once they complete that, they can retire and be all peaceful and floaty, whatever it is they do when they retire. And
Boca.
So one of the wielders that created that fate ended up creating death and the fall, I guess fulfilled their
divine purpose.
Their divine purpose was to really fail, so that death and...
But was it a failure?
Was it a failure?
Yeah.
In a way,
because
yes.
it's a fulfillment of the purpose. And so fate
Is it a failure
said...
to be at peace?
No, just because you die doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be at peace. You could potentially...
Right, but you get to
if you do something...
But you get to pick which tree you want to eat from.
Well, if you're already an angel, you don't.
Okay, yeah. Well,
You're either sent to the hollow in hell or to the eternal pool, depending on what you did. And
that's what I'm trying to
fate.
take.
Well, fate looked at that as... This was necessary. You know, we're talking about choosing the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
Well, this was a necessary evil, so that wielder did their job, and they can go to the eternal pool.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I remember they went to the hollow.
Maybe they did. I don't
know.
We
don't know.
That was a long time ago. So
exactly. But, I mean, to have that many, and then you're going, well, didn't somebody screw up or not do their job right? Or could they have been... Could their divine purpose sent them to the hollow?
It may have been.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, because the divine purpose is different for everybody, and they know, the angels know, kind of, what it is. It's almost like, you know how when you see an actor, but you don't know their name, but you're like, ooh, you've been in something. That's
you were in that one thing with that other person that I kind of like.
Exactly. That's how a divine purpose is. An angel knows that they know when they're on the path to fulfilling it, although they don't know exactly what the purpose is.
They don't know what they're fulfilling.
Exactly. They just know, they can feel it, that this is the way to go, because they're so connected to fate by being an angel.
Yeah.
So, whereas Samuel has only had one predecessor, and it's not because he fulfilled his divine purpose. It's because he done fucked up. And that's all I can say about that. So that's why Hope is like, nobody wants your job.
Yeah.
Nobody wants your job. Because
Yeah.
if I have to deal with brats like you, I wouldn't want I wouldn't want the job. I was talking in general.
So the important thing about the wielder of fate and, you know, the Pied Piper and all that, there's this one common thing that they have, and it's the hand. The hand of fate. Using this it should be noted, it can only be viewed by the wielder of fate, or someone that fate is like, all right, you do need to see this. Since you're here, I need to show you something.
Yeah.
So Samuel is blind to the hand. Without a wielder there, he has no idea what's going on in Earth or in hell. He
can sense it, though.
He can sense major things.
Yeah.
But he can't sense the littler things that he would normally keep track of.
The barely perceptible
or
stuff.
even the mediocre things. He can only sense the major things that could shift the balance. So that's why he's freaking out so much, going, Hope, get your shit together. And trying to get it to where she bonds with fate. But you have to take your leap of faith.
Yeah.
And you don't know when that's going to happen. You only know, just like the divine purpose, you only know when you've fulfilled it. So who knows what's going to happen? And to make things worse, Hope is a little bit distracted. See, there's this other angel in heaven. He's a guardian. His name is Jackson. He's a real sweet guy. He's super mischievous, constantly getting into trouble with Samuel and the angels of wisdom because he likes to go down on Earth and help the mortals and just have a good time. He likes to just kind of do his own thing.
Surfer dude.
But he does take his job seriously. He knows when he has to, and he knows what the lines are. That's why he toes them so closely. To get on everybody's nerves, because he knows where the line is, and he's like, I'm not going to cross it, but I can play around it.
Yeah.
And so he does that, and he is wild about Hope. He's been in love with her for 500 years. He's been in heaven just about as long as she has. I think she's been a little longer, but they've been together for 500 years, and they have a really good surface bond. But they're missing the true bond. So that leads me to my next point. When an angel is in the world of angel of death, when an angel is trying to help a mortal, particularly with the guardians, they have one major tool at their disposal, and it's called the mortal trinity, I think is what I called it, or the trifecta, where if they bond, like very personally bond with a mortal's mind, body, and soul, then that mortal will follow them to the ends of time.
Yeah.
And they are on the salvation path to heaven, and they'll do all this good, not necessarily calling it altruistic, more like, you're not going to be like a serial killer, or, maybe you were on a bad path of addiction and you got saved by your guardian and now you're on the straight and narrow again. Something like that. And angels can bond with each other whenever they are in a good, relationship. And the way they do that is by gifting their gem to the other angel. And that helps bond their souls together and all of that. So Jackson loves Hope, but they have yet to do that. So things are a little strained. Love's tough, especially when you're constantly in trouble with the Pied Piper and the Angels of Wisdom. So tell your boyfriend to get his shit together, Hope.
Okay. I gotta get my shit together.
I know, right?
Well, I can deal with some stuff, but when you're talking about, the Angels of Wisdom and you make them mad, you're on your own, buddy.
So that's kind of the crux of the characters, the important characters and important locations and things in heaven. Oh, one thing I did forget to touch on is the prayer well, because since we've gotten through to book 4 now, we can touch on the prayer well. It is a secret. Not the angels of heaven don't know this, but certain dark angels know that the prayer well is a secret path that links all 3 realms together. So a dark angel can go to heaven and spy on it and be all mischievous by going into the prayer well and coming out. And then they can return back to hell that same way. So
But can an angel go from the...
If they knew it existed.
Okay.
But that is something that they don't tell the angels of heaven, and only certain in the know dark angels are aware of that. And you have to be in the know with Lucian and, trusted and all that. So
I know who's in the know then.
Yeah. Which we'll talk about all that in another episode, all about hell. But that is basically the overarching description of heaven and the angels.
I like the description of like the trees and stuff.
Yeah, which
because that's a nice little update / twist, because everybody's like, oh, tree of knowledge, and the way you've done it is you've taken the tree of knowledge and broke it up.
Yeah,
and I like that because it is different things for different people.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There's not one solid interpretation of what heaven is, because realistically we don't know. Yeah. So this is kind of my interpretation, because I've always been very like, well, what if it's not really like this?
And that's a good thing about book 4 that comes out, and you really see that most people think of creatures as bad. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily the case. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I find that I thought that was very cool that you incorporated that into book 4.
Yeah.
So that you were like, okay, here's a character. They come in, they make it through the gates. Mm-hmm. But not everything is all as it seems.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting how all that played out.
Yeah. Because I feel like good is not 100% good. It's impossible. Everything, if you have free thought, then you are fallible in some way. So that's kind of why I'm like, let's blur these lines a little bit.
I was going to say that, and if you're going by that logic, then the angels make total sense right now. Because seriously, they look and carry themselves like the old interpretation of angels. But they ain't. Mm-hmm. They're not thinking like that. They're thinking like humans. Mm-hmm.
We were made in their image. So, and that's why the angels, like why there's dark angels that can blend in to Earth, because that's what our form was at some point. That's how we were created. So, at least in the world of Angel of Death.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Now, when you said the guardians, they will look on the back of your neck.
Yeah, the defenders will look back there. Yeah.
So, are the defenders the only one who could see that symbol, or if you're staying in line, can you see what the symbol is on the person in front of you?
The defenders are the only ones.
Okay.
Because
it's almost like that hologram marker that you put on somebody. Yeah. And only like either with black light or certain UV light.
I was just curious, like who all could see that marking and what.
And even then, it's probably with them.
What is the marking of good and what is the marking of bad?
So the marking of good is a tree. Okay. A really beautiful tree because of the holy trees.
Yeah.
So it's a resemblance of that. The mark of evil is a serpent. Because of the serpent reaching up to get the apple. And because of the age-old biblical tale of the serpent was what deceived Eve and all that. Okay. So only...
I don't think you talked about that in your books.
Not yet. It comes up in book 3, I think. Okay. Yes. So not books 1 and 2, but book 3, Veiled Commandments, is where that comes up. And that's kind of like just a fleeting thing that,
Yeah.
But so that there's clarification on why the damned souls are the damned. Because they were given that mark based on whatever it was they did.
Actually, I think you explained that in like the first chapter of book 3.
Yeah, because we're following them into hell.
Yeah, remember?
Yeah.
When she read that, yeah.
So that, that is, and the defenders are the only ones who can see it, the ones at the pearl gates. And once you're in the realm... it's not important anymore, so it basically disappears. I mean, the angels have tattoos. You know, the angels in heaven, not as many as like what the dark angels have, but they do have the tattoo on their backs of the sword, because that's their defense. So that is something, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something we need to mention. Angels can defend themselves if they are in battle. They all have down their spine a tattoo of a sword. The inscription on the sword is different for every angel because it specifically relates to them. So basically, their mark that denotes which realm they get into turns into that sword and gives them that power based on what it knows they did in their mortal life or whatever. Mm-hmm. So and at any point, the angel can just reach back and basically just tap their back and come away with the sword, and they can fight. And it's very sharp, it's very big, it's very like a nice broadsword kind of thing, and you know, it's very potent in battle. That is their main source of defense and offense to help. Aside from their magic, of course, all angels have magic, but sometimes that's not helpful enough. It's not enough. So yes, so
when you got to get down and dirty, no amount of magic's going to help you out. That's where the sword comes in.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes heads will roll. Wink, wink.
You're having so much fun with that. I am. Oh my God.
And that's for a book that if you haven't read it yet, I'm not going to spoil it for you. I know we say there's a lot of I can't tell you this, but it's because I don't like spoiling things. I try to be spoiler free.
And trust me, when you get to these particular points,
you'll know,
especially down the line, it's going to make everything so worth it.
And you'll know what we're talking about. So we'll talk more about the characters as they evolve and stuff later, but for now, that wraps up our discussion about the heaven realm. So I want to thank everybody for watching and tuning in, and I hope it was enjoyable for you and that you learned a little about the Angel of Death, Kingdom of Heaven. And thank, of course, Tasha and Jason for participating in the conversation today. So I want to know what you guys think about my depiction of heaven. Is it what you envisioned? I know I'm probably opening up a can of worms here, but I am not. I will stress that I'm not looking for a religious debate. I just want to know what you thought of the depiction and what your depiction was. What did you imagine when you imagine angels? Do they have halos? Do they walk around in pajamas all day? Do they like in This Is the End? Are they able to wish for anything they want and it's there? You can roll around on what are those? The little hoverboard things.
Oh, yeah.
And can you wish for your favorite band and there they are? Gosh, that would be heaven. Yeah. So tell me, I'd have a personal concert every day from the Foo Fighters and the BSB and Breaking Benjamin, especially for this purpose. So, but that would, I'm curious to know what your interpretation of heaven is when you think of it. Again, not a religious debate, just fun interpretations. So, as always, on behalf of all of us here at the Composition of Imagination, just be good and we love you. Remember that you are capable of kicking ass and taking names all the time. Don't forget to order your copies of the first 4 installments in the Angel of Death series. Paperback, hardcover, and dust jackets are now available with an autograph exclusively at StevieJoAuthor.com.